Good evening, viewers, and welcome to today's edition of the news. First, a look at the headlines. Supreme Court directs centre and the states to facilitate return of migrant workers within 15 days. %50 tuition fees waived off for all government-aided and deficit schools. State postpones opening of religious places until further notice. And the centre plans to reduce school syllabus, invites suggestions from teachers, academicians and educationists. And now the news in detail. Meghalaya registered one more COVID-19 positive case today. An elderly citizen who had come from Rebhoy district and was under isolation, where the total number of COVID-19 positive cases in the state went up to 40 and total active cases 26. The Supreme Court today directed the centre and the state governments to send all the migrant workers to their native places within 15 days and to formulate employment schemes after conducting their skill mapping to rehabilitate them. The top court also directed authorities to consider withdrawing all cases against migrant workers for alleged violation of lockdown norms under the Disaster Management Act. The bench also directed the authorities to identify and register migrant workers who want to go back to their native places and conclude the exercise, including their transportation, within 15 days from today. The Meghalaya government has reduced the tuition fees of all government-aided, deficit pattern and deficit schools for the month of April, May and June by 50%. The government has also requested the cooperation of private schools, asking them to refrain from collecting any other fees except for tuition fees. The private schools will not collect any other fees except tuition fees from the students for the month of April, May and June. This decision will be applicable to those students who are badly affected by the COVID-19 lockdown, said Deputy Chief Minister Preston Tinsong.
April, May, June, all government-aided schools, deficit as well as deficit pattern schools, run, control jointly by the government and the respective management of each schools, 50% of tuition fees will be reduced. For those schools which is completely run by the private organization, no other fees will be charged or will be collected by the private schools for 3 months again, April, May, June. All other fees except tuition fees.
Churches and other places of worship in Meghalaya will remain closed for devotees until further orders. Deputy Chief Minister Preston Tinsong informed the media today that it was decided not to reopen churches and other places of worship, keeping in mind the safety aspects. The religious places earlier were slated to reopen on the June 14th, and a draft of standard operating procedure was also circulated to all the religious leaders. However, after a meeting was convened today, it was unanimously decided to keep the religious places shut until further orders.
The religious worshipping places, worshipping places will not be allowed. Reopening will not be allowed, and the last decision will be taken on the 5th of this month stands cancelled. And this decision were taken with the suggestions, submissions made by all the respective religious groups, religious denominations.
Deputy Chief Minister Preston Tinsong informed that the government will continue to pay transportation fees for stranded citizens till June 10th. But from June 11th onwards, transportation charges from Guwahati to Shillong have to be borne by the individuals, even though the transportation will be arranged by the Transport Department.
Because the last decision we taken was up to 10th of this month, till 10th of this month, transportation for fetching them from Guwahati, be it railway station, be it airport station, government will pay the transportation. We are being paid the transportation till 10th of this month. But today the decision we taken again, from 11th of this month, from 11 onwards, those who coming in, who return back to the state, transportation charges has to be borne by the individual.
One person was arrested for his alleged involvement in raping 5 minors, including a 15-year-old girl who was kidnapped and rescued from Lomshnong village in East JAINTIA Hills district. A written complaint was lodged against him before the officer in charge of 8th Mile Traffic Cell that a 15-year-old girl was lured and kidnapped from the locality in West JAINTIA Hills on June 5th to Lomshnong village. The minor girl was successfully rescued from Lomshnong and the accused person was arrested and is under judicial custody. As many as 6 cases were registered against the alleged person under the POCSO Act and 363 IPC. The minor have been medically examined and they have been forwarded to Child Welfare Committee for necessary assistance and psychological support to the children.
Kailan dia berdialog dengan Lutheran ba ka militer berhasantarik jom Lutheran bau new beriu umi na pola long lara jubor ya ikon juni ba ka sanam sha supposedly for to Lomshnong. Accordingly haka Lutheran hi wan ada ka written complaint for 8 Mile Traffic Cell. Accordingly the moment he received the information mila form with a special team mila yo victim nang tu bagi victim mila ra juai. Accordingly ni victim tu mila for medical examination and he was accused mila arrest and tahu for judicial custody. Seems but it was allegedly that Unuju accused person he has also sexually assaulted other 4 minor victims each around 9, 11 and 12 years old.
So we are going by what the medical report says, and the medical report of the doctor has said that there is a sexual assault. So that's why we are proceeding on that lines, and that's why the investigation also will go on those lines.
In view of the recent flash floods in many parts of Garo Hills, State Revenue and Disaster Management Minister informed 29 villages and 274 houses in South Garo Hills and West Garo Hills have been fully and partially affected by the recent flash floods and landslides. The infrastructure has been damaged in parts of Garo Hills. Shillong said the Deputy Commissioner of the concerned districts will look into the matter by utilizing the fund allocated to them for instant relief to the flood-affected areas. He said if the available fund is not sufficient to cover the loss and damage, the government will send a proposal to the centre. He also stated that the damage is more this year as compared to previous year since the natural calamities has occurred in many parts of the state.
Send a letter to the ministry, so let's see what the central ministry help us.
Human Resources Development Minister Ramesh Pokhriyal Nishank today said that in view of the current circumstances and after receiving a lot of requests from parents and teachers, the government is contemplating the option of reduction in the syllabus and instructional hours for the coming academic year. In a tweet, Nishang appealed to all teachers, academicians and educationists to share their point of view on the matter using hashtag syllabus for students 2020 on Ministry of Human Resource Development's or his Twitter and Facebook page so that they can take them into consideration while making a decision. And now here is the weather report. The maximum temperature recorded was 25.3 degrees Celsius. Relative humidity in the morning was 79%, while in the evening it was 88%. No rainfall was recorded. The forecast, Shillong and its adjoining areas will have partly cloudy sky. And that's a wrap of today's edition of the news. Thank you very much for joining us, and from all of us here, it's good night.